Hi, I'm Mia Schulte and I'm the Irsay Family YMCA Teaching Kitchen Director. I'm excited to bring you some new and fresh recipes from our cooking series, the only difference being right now we're actually at my house. Today we're going to be making an asparagus tart with some cheese and lemon zest. Makes for an excellent dinner if you pair it with a side salad or a fun appetizer if you wanted something like that. So we're actually going to start. I have all of my ingredients laid out so I can show you what we've made so far. To start, I have my thawed puff pastry. This is something you can find in the freezer section of your local grocery store. I've pulled out 1 square of puff pastry and let it thaw for about 40 minutes just so it softens up and it's usable. I also have 1 lemon that I'll use the zest of. I have 2 eggs. I have a ½ cup of parmesan cheese shredded, and then I have 1 block of cream cheese softened. You can either set it out when you set the puff pastry out, or I just popped it in the microwave for 30 seconds. And then I have about 1 pound of asparagus trimmed. This is how I like to store the asparagus in the fridge, just like when you buy flowers at the store. I take it home, I cut the woody ends off and put it in water in the fridge, and it makes it last quite a bit longer than your usual way. To start, I will be rolling out my puff pastry so it's nice and soft. I will open it up, and it is pretty soft and I don't want it to stick to the counter, so I'll probably put the parchment paper underneath. And the goal of rolling it out here is really just to make it a little bit longer. Just looking for a rectangle shape. Alright, not a big change, but just makes it a little bit longer. So I'll put that back on. I have my cookie sheet lined with parchment paper, so that'll make sure that the puff pastry doesn't stick as an end result. And then what I'm going to do is take a knife and actually score about 1 inch from the outside. That'll make a true crust when you're cooking, or when it cooks. So I'm not cutting all the way through, but just making a slash on the sides, and that'll make sure the edges puff up nicely. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So now I have my scored puff pastry, and I'll set that to the side. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually create my filling, or like cheese topping. So I have my cream cheese that's softened. I will add a ½ cup of parmesan, and then I'm going to zest my lemon. If you're working with little ones on this recipe, which you certainly could, I'd recommend doing the zesting yourself, just because that can be dangerous for little hands. And the reason we're using lemon zest versus lemon juice is the zest adds that lemony flavor without making the topping runny. So I have all of that added. Next, I'm going to separate the eggs. I actually only want the egg yolks and not the egg whites in my filling. So I have my 2 eggs, and I always like to crack the eggs on the countertop. It's less likely that you get shells, so that's why I smack them on the countertop instead of the edge of the bowl. And to separate, I just keep 1/2 upright and then let the extra parts kind of fall off by themselves. And then I'll put my yolk in there, and I want to keep the egg whites. We'll use that in a later step. If you do get shell, you can always use the previous shell to scoop it out. I'll wash my hands really quick. Alright, so I'll add my 2 egg yolks. And the last thing I need is salt and pepper. So I will do probably a pinch of salt. We'll season it a little bit later as well, so I don't need too much. And then a good helping of black pepper. And because everything's warmed up, I'm just going to use a fork to mix it together really quick. Alright, I have my topping, so it's all combined, and I will actually spread it out on the middle square. I've chosen to do one large tart, but you could certainly cut up the puff pastry and do like mini tarts, or you could do like almost croissant shapes and roll it in on each other. Just trying to stay within that border that we scored earlier. At this point, I also have my oven preheated to 430 degrees. That'll help make sure that the puff pastry puffs nicely and that everything is done while we're cooking. Now I'm going to take my asparagus and place it on. And I like to do alternating just to make it look fancy. Alternate options, if you don't have asparagus, you could use shaved carrots. You could do like tomatoes and mozzarella. You could include prosciutto on this if you wanted to. So there's a lot of options to really match it to your flavor profile. Alright, that looks good. I will do my egg wash really quick. I'm going to add a splash of water to the egg whites and mix them together. And this will just help the crust brown up. We'll just use it to brush on the crust, and that makes sure that it's nice and golden when it comes out. This is a great tip, or a great step if you do have little ones helping you. And I'll just do a little bit of black pepper on top, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of Parmesan cheese just for good measure on top. And this will go in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Alright, I just pulled the tart out of the oven, and this is what the final product looks like. Thanks for joining me today, and as always, thank you for supporting the Y during this time.